Is a war machine on this Zaya.
Are you kidding me?
Well, a double kill, make it a triple kill here for Altsec. CLG goes for the engage. The pick in now, is it enough? Only hits on the one. There's the pullback. And it is taken by Dignitas. Here comes the team fight. Big damage, and Dardock goes down right away. Over the wall they go with the re-engage. Here comes the squad, but they've got Froggen. There's the laser, and Broken Blade goes down again. Look at this hook. He's so good. Move over. And the kick as well. Might find some more kills. Johnson's dead now as well.
Kill while he's farming a camp. That's the card that's special. He's going back in. Goes back in. This is it. And he's out. Absolutely out of play.
What is going on, everybody? Welcome to another edition of the Rift Rewind, an ESPN League of Legends program. Ardo Cal, Darren Kwilinski, 6-2, currently in predictions this split. Not bad.
Future mobile Valorant player, pro.
You're skipping over the beta and everything.
Skipping over beta,
You're waiting
skipping over
for
the initial release. I'm going to be a Valorant mobile pro player. We all know it's coming at some point, of some level.
Yeah, I'm waiting for Voda too. Anyway, Tyler Erzberger and Emily Rand will be joining us from Los Angeles as well. Lots to unpack in a very weird weekend, at least in the LCS, but a lot of interesting results, a lot of teams moving and shaking up the standings, down the standings. There's a lot of flux right now.
There was a couple of strange happenings, a couple of outliers. I would say largely business as usual when you look over in the LEC. Couple of hiccups here and there in the LCS. Tyler and Emily will talk LPL and LCK. But yeah, for sure there were a couple of strange things. How about that pole belter?
Oh, we're going to talk a lot about the notorious POB. We have a lot to mention as it pertains to the resurgence of CLG. Spoiler, I think they're going to be one of the best teams to watch in the second half of the split. That remains to be seen. Let's look at the results from this past weekend. Cloud9, still that outer turret remains untouched. FlyQuest could have been the best team to do it, but they faltered.
They sat in mid lane. They scrapped in mid lane a ton to really get something going. And I want to think that they were like, we're going to be the first team to get that mid lane turret, that tier 1. That's why they spent so much time there. I mean, there was not a lot of side pressure in that game, but Cloud9 walked away with it.
Look at that impressive result for Team Liquid. However, we would not have predicted that a few weeks ago, but they handled TSM very well.
Crushed them. It was not even a fair fight.
And Breyer in the chat says, nah, TSM just sucked. Is it more TSM was bad in the game, or I thought TL looked great that game.
I thought TL looked really, really good. They made some really smart moves. Team Solo Mid did not control their vision and allowed for some flanks. They basically, I would agree TSM sucked, but I also think Team Liquid made some smart plays, controlled the game, and really just maneuvered Team Solo Mid where they wanted them.
Thank you to JSoft for joining us all the way in Germany. It's the middle of the night there. Thanks for sticking with us. Here are results from Guten Tag. That's right. And these are the results from day 2. Evil Genius is dispatching Golden Guardians, and CLG. Oh man, that is an 0-2 week for TSM, and CLG is the culprit.
Yeah. Again, notorious POB coming up big on a Victor there. One of his. I mean, you had something you wanted to say on that, so I'll let you keep that in your pocket. But yeah, Counter Logic Gaming come up with the surprise win against Team Solo Mid. I would have picked TSM in that match had we talked about it, but luckily,
as we take a look at the standings here, Cloud9 saying Dankeschön to all the remaining teams in the LCS.
Everyone else.
FlyQuest in second, though. I honestly believe this will not last, though. FlyQuest looked great. I don't believe they will remain second at the end of the split.
You don't think so?
No. You see that team in the 4th position there? They're surging.
Yeah, no, I agree for sure. I think FlyQuest, Team Liquid are gonna battle it out for second, third. I think I agree with that. I don't think anyone's gonna catch Cloud9 at this point. Not the way they were playing. There's not gonna be something that just flips and they're like, oh, we figured them out. No, I think the download is too late on this one. But then, you got the second half of the standings, which is, for the LCS, competitive. For everyone else, kind of a joke.
Every team, I mean, maybe not CLG, they're not mathematically eliminated per se, but every other team still has a chance to make the playoffs in spring.
Yeah, make the playoffs, but I mean, that's probably about it. Just make the playoffs.
I'm just saying, listen, if that should be the goal, right? No matter what you think about spring, no matter what you think your beliefs are, if you're on Team Doublelift and you think, you know what, spring doesn't matter, you should still want to be competitive.
I 100% agree. And look, there were some teams on there that I think if they make playoffs or if they go even, if they finish in the second half or the top half of the LCS split, then that's a win for them. Evil Geniuses was one of those ones that I pegged as if they have good expectations, like realistic expectations of a 500 season, and then they make the playoffs, like that's just icing on the cake. Like they have a lot of work to do, and I think the spring split is the time to iron out some of those really rough edges that you're seeing in some of those bottom teams.
Of course, you're watching this program on Twitch, the ESPN app, YouTube, and on Twitter. We're monitoring Twitch chat all show long. King of Jarls, I believe that's how we pronounce it, says FlyQuest won't be second, but definitely third. TL has better talent and better experience in big games, and that's where I tend to agree. This weekend, as we transition now talking about Team Liquid here, I honestly believe that this was the weekend where we looked at Team Liquid and we said, okay, if Cloud9 was the team of the first half of this split, TL will be the team of the second half of this split, and they are on a collision course, possibly for the spring split finals.
I would be not surprised if it was C9 TL in the finals, and I would not be surprised if at the end of the split you have Team Liquid in second, Cloud9 in first, FlyQuest third, Team Solo mid and fourth. I think that would be a realistic standing for the top four of the LCS. Before we get too deep into Team Liquid, shout out to Surenfire. Team Liquid would not be where they are at without Surenfire helping them get those 2 early wins.
Yeah.
Was he the best? Did they draft around him correctly? Doesn't matter. What matters is those 2 marks in the W column that helped them get to this 6-6 spot.
That's a good point, because a lot of people might have said he would have been the problem, because the whole narrative was we're waiting for Broxa, we're waiting for Broxa. At the end of his tenure, nobody was saying that he was the reason Team Liquid lost all those games.
No, and I think when we talk to Emily about it, she brings up a lot of really good points. Specifically, they didn't draft around Surenfire and cover up for some of his weaknesses, where if they would draft pushing lanes, that's going to give him a lot more options and accessibility to help his other lanes. But shout out to him for really sticking in there, for really taking a lot of that brunt and being like, I got to shoulder this responsibility. It was a next man up sort of mentality.
So obviously the question is, well, what happens with Doublelift now? He was sick this past weekend. Here's a tweet that he put out recently. And yes, the conversation is going to be, and here's the tweet, I won't be able to play this weekend of LCS because I got laryngitis, not corona, and I can't use my voice at all. We're going to play with Tactical, so please support him in his debut and cheer for Team Liquid. So very much a rah-rah Team Liquid team kind of tweet, which you could say maybe if you read between the lines in some of the interviews that we've heard with whether it's players or whether it's teams, like, Steve Aronsett has even said Doublelift is not Team Liquid, right? Like he has said this publicly. Like he is not the singular focus of the team. He is part of the team that is Team Liquid. And if a part of me thinks that maybe this past weekend was a wake-up call for Doublelift. I wonder. I know that the circumstance was unfortunate. I'm not discounting the illness at all. But what I'm saying is, if you look at the timing, Tactical has a great weekend. Team Liquid have a great weekend. Taking nothing away from Doublelift's accomplishments, but for him to also have said publicly that he doesn't really care about spring, maybe this will light a fire.
Could be. I mean, look, Doublelift is a phenomenal player. One of the most seasoned veterans that the LCS has. Not taking anything away from him from what he's done. However, his current split is anything but productive, I would say. You look at some of his stat lines, and it's just not very impressive. I think he was 18 and 18 and mid 40s on his assists. He's first or second in gold share for ADCs and 7th in damage per minute. Like, I don't understand how you can get so much gold yet have so little impact damage-wise when your role is literally mostly damage. Oh wait, I know, 0-4 Senna. So I don't think they necessarily played towards double lift strength. You kind of rely on him to get you to that late game, scale up, get something high damage and put it out. And that's kind of what you saw.
As we take a look at the KDA in week 6 for Team Liquid.
Exactly, and that's what you saw them do for Tactical.
You see those goose eggs for Tactical, by the way?
Oof, those are great goose eggs. Those are the goose eggs that you want. Those are delicious scrambled goose eggs. Crack that open over a nice little skillet, add a little Romano cheese on there. You got an 8-0 and 6. Weekend.
Delicious.
Delicious.
Absolutely delicious.
Delicious. They did a really good job with Tactical this weekend. They did the exact opposite of what they did with Surenfire, where they didn't draft around him. They drafted to Tactical's strengths. In Academy, Misfortune is his most played champion. And so they drafted Misfortune Braum in the first rotation against Team Solo
Play to his
Mid
strengths.
and play to his strengths, exactly. They took away the Braum from TSM, who's a good counter against Misfortune, with his shield and with his ult, and they played around that. Then they trusted him with a Taric Callista combo in that bot lane, and he absolutely destroyed against 100 Thieves. They got an early kill on Stunt and Cody Sun, just the 2v2, and then Broxa made a smart rotation, helped them push out that lane so that that bot lane can then be free to roam and group up and just keep the momentum and tempo going. So they played really smart with Tactical. They helped him out, and they really just got him in a good spot to succeed.
Well, someone's opinion I would also love to hear is Emily Rand, who's joining us now from Los Angeles. Emily, we are now talking Team Liquid. We're talking Tactical. Would it be tactical for Team Liquid to keep Tactical in the roster based off this weekend?
I mean, we'll see. I think, again, they were really smart about how they wanted to play with Tactical, how they drafted for him. I will say that 2v2 early kill against 100T, that was more of a misstep with 100 Thieves and them like capitalizing on it with detaching as Yumi, where they could easily get stunned up by the Taric. So I think that was a little bit more of a capitalizing on a mistake. But I do think that Tactical stepped in and he performed really well. As for whether they'll replace Double Lift with him, I'm not so sure. Double Lift is one of those players who it's really difficult to sit, right? Because he's just not only the legacy, but generally he's one of the best, if not the best, AD carry in North America at all times. I know he has had a rough split. I know part of it has been some of the drafting things with Senna, how they didn't really, again, Darren mentioned it a bit, but how they didn't really set up Surenfire for success as much in draft. But I think the most important thing that I've seen from TL this past week is Broxa looking more comfortable with the team, and also him being able to coming over from Fnatic, I think I touched on this last week, but he would kind of perma-camp like one side of the map over the other and not really go back and forth. I think we're seeing him open up more a bit as a jungler. I don't know if that's because he's receiving instruction. I've heard he's a bit quiet in comms, so I don't know what their comms are like at all, but it did seem that with Tactical in the lineup, he was a bit more like, for example, he went and kept down the Kayle against TSM, which is kind of something that you want to do with a flashless Kayle. You just kept punishing that. So I think that was also, TL looked a lot more cohesive just as a unit. And I don't know if that is necessarily because of Tactical or just because of the way they drafted, or the fact that Broxa is finally communicating and they just have general better team synergy. It could be all three. But this TL definitely looked more like what we expect from TL, and that was really good for them. And now they've like skyrocketed in the standings because everything is still up in the air with all of the middle tier teams.
Yeah, I totally agree with Emily on Broxa making smart moves, not just in one side of the map, but in both sides of the map. He had a really nice flank on a visionless team solo mid. When he pushed down into the mid lane, he did a really smart thing where he helped his top lane get ahead by getting that Kayle set behind a little bit more. And then again, against 100 Thieves, after the misstep from that bot lane, He visited down there to help get that tower broken down and release the bot lane to help roam a little bit. So Broxa being a little bit more active to me helps just give Team Liquid all of the freedom that they need to do and accentuate their strengths.
Yeah. What about, so when you look at Broxa's progression week over week on Team Liquid, do you feel like we are approaching his final form and really what Team Liquid fans had hoped for and dreamed about in terms of Broxa being on this team, Emily?
I mean, I think Broxa still has, like, even when he was on Fnatic, I thought he was really good at some things and needed some work on others. How to adjust in-game when a draft game plan kind of falls apart was one of them. And I haven't seen him necessarily fail at that on TL, but I also haven't seen him succeed. So if I'm looking at a mixture of kind of in-game adaptability and some of those intangibles we talked about with team synergy, that's what I really want to see going forward. This week, again, to stress, like we saw TL, I think, really set up well for what they wanted to do in draft, especially even though, like, I actually later I'm going to somewhat sort of defend TSM's team comp. That was a comp that was, you know, going to kind of get shoved in early so they could capitalize on it early because that is, you know, they're looking to scale. And they took advantage of that. I think what I really want to see from Broxa and when TL gets pushed by a stronger team is going to be how he and the rest of the team react when stuff doesn't go according to their draft plan, right? When they do have to adjust in game. I think that's really going to be the biggest test for Broxa and TL. That's kind of like the next test on the horizon.
Chrono Trigger in the chat says, I think this shows that Doublelift might need to take a back seat in shot calling for the current meta. Before we move off of TL to talk C9, I feel like we should tie a bow on who we would want to see in the AD carry position for Team Liquid next week, whether or not Doublelift is healthy. In my opinion, it's a choice between a proven commodity in Doublelift, but somebody who might not necessarily be taking Spring seriously, and somebody who's a very strong voice and a leader on this team, so you have to listen to him in terms of comms, versus somebody who seems to be a very good role player on the team in tactical, and somebody who will try his best to adapt to whatever team scenario there is and be that role player, but also has something to prove in the LCS, so will certainly take Spring seriously. Which one are you picking? Darren, let's start with you.
So I agree with all of that, and I look at the next 3 weeks for Team Liquid. You have Kyle Logic Gaming Immortals for the next week, and then Evil Geniuses and Golden Guardians before a final tough week of FlyQuest and Cloud9. I say, why not give Tactical another week? See how he looks. What happens? Is he going to be that role player that Team Liquid needs and just doesn't die and does his job and gets to that late game and does a ton of damage?
Hasn't died yet.
Right. He's deathless. So why not? Why not just see what happens? You know, it is spring. And if it is spring, why not try out a couple of different ideas, different players, different roles, different champions, and see where you go?
Emily, what do you think?
Ooh, that's tough. I mean, I really can't, like, it sucks because I'm the one who always says, like, give academy players a shot, right? And I think this proved that Tactical is, you know, more than ready for the LCS stage. The main problem that I have in my mind is that the person he would be replacing is still one of the best bot laners in North America. So it's really difficult for me thinking about, like, I'm going over in my mind, like, how their comms work, and now I'm just morbidly curious because obviously, like, Doublelift is a massive voice, but he was out this week. You're not expecting Tactical to have a massive voice, but maybe he does because I've heard that Broxa and Impact are both fairly quiet. So now I'm like looking at this team and I'm like, is it Jensen and Core who are calling the shots this past weekend? Is Broxa finally stepping up and really finding his voice, where we heard from his time on Fnatic that he was traditionally like really, really quiet and kind of took direction from the rest of the team? Like, now I'm just morbidly curious about their comm system and also how loud Tactical was and how much of that is Core, because we know that, like, in my opinion, Core is just a really brilliant mind. Like, he's so smart about the game. So maybe it means that he's been stepping up in comms. Like, that would be what I would be looking at if I was TL. Like, how did the team communicate? What was their synergy like? And then move forward from there.
A couple comments in the chat here. Leandra Salesman, says spring split equals Tactico, in my opinion. Summer equals double lift. And Flashy, one of our longtime chat members, Flashy Singh, says Tactical plus Core JJ greater than double lift plus Core JJ, question mark. At least for this weekend, certainly made a good case. But now we got to talk about the toast of the LCS. Still, that outer turret in mid lane, untouched, unblemished, standing there laughing at the rest of the LCS. Cloud9, and we have Tyler Erzberger with us now in Los Angeles as well to break down. We always talk about the gap. I've always asked you over the years, Tyler, about the gap. Usually that is in reference to South Korea versus the rest of the world. But this time, I'm going to ask you about the gap between Cloud9 and FlyQuest and the rest of the LCS. How wide is it, Tyler?
It is as big as the Pacific Ocean. It's as big as Faker's champion pool. It is big as
the Pacific Ocean with all
ridiculous.
The garbage in it too.
It's actually ridiculous how far ahead C9 is from everyone else in the LCS right now. They've played FlyQuest, the second best team in the league, twice and blown them out twice. They gave up versus TSM and they still blow them out. It's just from their macros, their decision making, to just their mechanical talent overall. It's far greater than anyone else in the LCS, and they're on another level right now. And I think the play that really spoke to me the most this past weekend was C9's up, 4K gold, they're in control over FlyQuest, and they're at Baron. They have Baron down to 10%, but Centaurin's up on Lee Sin. What do? Do they fight it? Do they 50-50 it? Do they force the issue? No, they have control of the entire map, so they just walk away. They don't fight. They don't do anything. They just walk away. No one LCS does that. Every other LCS team, and a lot of teams around the world right now, including teams in Europe and South Korea, would have 50-50 that Baron or fought, and it would have been stupid. But C9 walked away, and that just them walking away and not doing anything there and just letting their lead stay and keeping the control of the map and not even giving FlyQuest a chance, even if it was a 1% chance to bring this the game back. They didn't let that happen. So that moment right there just kind of personifies how good C9 has been this year by just flat out doing nothing, which in the LCS sometimes is the best thing to do.
The thing that I don't think a lot of people actually talk about is the champion pools. And only 24 unique champions have been played by Cloud9. FlyQuest have played 31, TSM have played 37, and Team Liquid have played 33. There's hidden power in this team that we don't even know about yet. They haven't even reached a final form. They haven't been pressed far enough to go past 24 unique champions. I find that fascinating.
Well, Pobelter has had more champions played in his career than Cloud9 has played in this split. We'll get to Pobelter in a little bit, though. FlyQuest is in the chat, by the way. What I want to know from FlyQuest is how many trees have you planted this split? Please let us know in the chat. I would love to read that because I love the initiative. Emily, when we talk about Cloud9, they have been dominant, absolutely. But I go back to Team Liquid, and I wonder if they're going to be the team to catch up to Cloud9. How do you think the next Cloud9 versus TL matchup will look like?
Well, so I actually don't think there's as much of a gap as Tyler was saying. I think it really comes down to a lot of minutia that C9 are doing that other teams aren't. Like, for example, in the FlyQuest game, when FlyQuest gets first blood on Viper, Niski is already roaming topside to shove the wave in, so that wave's going to crash into turret, right? And that means that if Viper has to recall because he's pretty low, but then he has to go back and stop his recall to reset the wave. It's like really small stuff like that I think C9 are better at than other teams in the region. But like watching and reviewing this FlyQuest game, I do think that if other teams work on that minutia, like FlyQuest is a team that I like to point to as kind of the default second best team in the league, right? Over TL still, because they have a really set idea of how they want to play. And even though they mis-execute it, I would say a lot, I appreciate the fact that they have a default play style that they want to be able to play, that they are trying to take initiative even when they do kind of screw up. And it's those minute things like lane states, like where you're resetting the wave, how you're reacting to stuff cross map, that I think if they nailed it down, they're definitely solidly the second best team. And I think the team to beat C9 is going to be the team that figures that stuff out. Again, we're talking really minute details, wave states, back timing, all that kind of stuff.
We will get to FlyQuest in a second. I want to say that the next date to mark on your calendar, my opinion, is Sunday, March 22nd, because that is the date that Cloud9 will face Team Liquid next. My opinion, I believe Team Liquid by that point will be in such a form that they will challenge Cloud9, and it will be a very competitive contest. Dare say Team Liquid might put that O into the rearview mirror and add a 1 in the loss column, because Team Liquid have the potential to look very scary, especially in the second half of the split.
Here's a segue for you. First, they have to get past FlyQuest the day before.
That's right. And by the way, FlyQuest told us they've planted about 3,300 trees so far.
Ah.
Thumbs up to that. That is absolutely awesome. So, FlyQuest, Emily, currently occupying second spot in the LCS. They have impressed many. They have surpassed many's expectations. How do they continue to do that in the second half of the split?
What I want to see from FlyQuest is when they do end up getting, again, like, so all the minutiae I talked about before, right? So like pay more attention to just wave state and stuff like that. But even if you're at a disadvantage, try to pay more attention to things that will help your team succeed. And if they have an advantage, pressing that even harder. Like, I think this is a team that, again, like, wants to play really aggressively, and when they make mistakes, it's because sometimes they're not being aggressive enough. Like, Tyler talked about how, you know, sometimes the best thing in NALCS to do is nothing. Well, I think FlyQuest should always be doing something, because they have a lot of players that do want to push in, that want to initiate. Like both of their solo laners want to initiate. Ignar, if you can detach him from the bot lane and have Turtle farming safely, he is going to be your greatest asset, especially in resetting that mid lane wave, because one of the things that kept happening to PoE is that against Cloud9 is that he was getting shoved in by Niski pretty consistently, and then Niski was just constantly roaming top or bot, depending on where they wanted him. So, I mean, unlock Ignar, press your advantages so much more, and then shore up on those like minute details that I talked about previously. And I think that is what can take FlyQuest from like, okay, we're second best in NA, we've like risen above the soup, to okay, we're a legitimate contender for the LCS title.
Tyler, if C9 were to sweep the awards by position for the early MVPs of the split, how many of those titles would FlyQuest at least contend for?
I mean, if they go 18-0, there is no contending, right? If your team goes 18-0 in such an impressive fashion, there is no close second best. But I agree with Emily, where I think obviously PoE is the all-star of the team. He's doing like 37% of the overall team damage. His DPM is the highest in the league. He's a monster. He's playing out of his mind. But the real key and the real superstar on the team of FlyQuest, I believe, is Ignar. And I think Ignar, while not as good as Vulcan right now, I think if you can get him roaming, if you can unlock Ignar and have him roaming around the map and putting him in, you know, with mid lane, with PoE, who he has a good relationship with, that's when he unlocks the entire team. And I do agree that, yes, a lot of times doing nothing is the best in LCS when it comes to Baron or it comes to overplaying your hand. But for FlyQuest, a team that I feel knows the basics and knows, you know, the foundation and they have the foundation down. Now they have to do more than that. They have to press forward and be more aggressive, and I think Ignar is where that starts.
So, Large S8 in the chat says FlyQuest is the most exciting team in the LCS to watch. I think that definitely will continue into the second half of the split. A team that is very perplexing to watch is TSM. They either go 2-0 in a weekend, this split, or 0-2. And some people might say the glass is half full here, some might say the glass is half empty, but it's it's such a perplexing team this season. Sometimes they look amazing. Other teams, they look like they're the worst team in the league.
At least they're consistent. You know, if they
No,
win,
they're consistently inconsistent.
Well, no, you know, if they win their first game, they're going to win their second game. You know, if they lose their first game, they're going to lose their second game. Now, look,
Do you think that's
no, I don't think that's
mentality
actually
thing?
100% true.
No, what I'm saying is, do you think that's a mentality thing? Like that's a good point. It's like, it seems like the first game really dictates what happens in the second game.
It might. I mean, look, there were some questionable things that happened in the Team Liquid game, and Emily had touched on it too, that Team Liquid just didn't let them scale. Again, Broxa was very active. He put the Kayle behind. Kayle was almost 30 CS behind at 10 minutes. That's a huge lead in top lane. So they're pushing with Vision in the mid lane, trying to get the mid lane tower against Team Liquid, but Broxy comes on a flank from their own red side jungle. Like, it just didn't make sense, some of the things that they were doing. So again, they have Spring Split to figure all this stuff out.
Right.
But the identity of the team, what they want to do, how they want to do it, like, they did not execute that scaling comp very well.
Right.
So I don't know. They just got to work on that.
See, Tyler, the reason I say this is I look at Week 6, obviously. They lose to Team Liquid, and then they lose to CLG. But going back to Week 4, that might be a more telling week, losing to Cloud9, then FlyQuest, right? FlyQuest, at least, is a team that they should be contending against, but they really don't make a case for them to be a top 3 team like we thought they would be at the start of the season.
Yeah, just like how I was in school, I was consistently mediocre and disappointing. So that's how I would sum up TSM right now. A lot of promise, a lot of potential, but I let down my teachers in the end. And I feel like I'm the teacher of myself, and TSM is letting me down. Their early game is much improved. Like, if you look at their laners are actually quite good. It just really comes down to these oddball drafts and these really weird decisions by not just the coaching staff. You can't believe everything on the coaching staff, but the team in general. The Maokai pick was so complexing. I mean, why Maokai? I was like, I would have preferred a Malphite. If you're gonna play like Doinby, play Malphite. At least there's better engage there. You can use the Kale ult while Malphite rolls in. You have a good engage there. Everything of TSM feels like they're experimenting, and that's not a bad thing, but it leaves results where they look less appealing than they probably should. This team is probably good enough to be an 8-4, maybe even a 9-3 team. They should be up there at FlyQuest, but because of these weird experimentations and this kind of aloof attitude kind of to some of their games where it feels like they would rather try something and fail than just win with something that's, concrete and certain, we're left with this like uneasy feeling of being like, they're 6-6. They're not bad. They're not good. It's just kind of a weird situation of TSM right now. I still believe in them. I still think they're a top 4 team at the end of the split, but right now, kind of disappointing.
Chat saying TSM is trying to be too cute with their compositions, and it feels like they're scrimming their compositions, and they feel rigid in that. And when something happens, they're just not able to adapt necessarily, which could very well be the case. But you could also attribute TSM losing to CLG to Pobelter. Pobelter had an incredible game against TSM, and it seems like he always has an incredible game against TSM, right? Him playing Victor this past weekend, shades of 2015, Summer Split Finals, Madison Square Garden, him popping off with Victor, CLG winning the split. Yeah, that was a very, very long time ago. Both of these teams, we don't even think they'll sniff the championship.
Feels like a
this
lifetime
split.
ago, to be honest.
Definitely does, but it was shades of nostalgia that Pobelter was giving us on Victor. But when we talk about CLG, and I said this at the top of the program in chat, you can tell me if you agree or disagree here. I feel like CLG, and in particular Pobelter, is going to be one of the more exciting teams and player to watch in the second half, Darren, because I feel like Pobelter, through all that he's been through, the offseason, the fact that no one wanted to give him a chance at mid lane in this team, he had to go become a coach at Team Liquid, and finally something comes up. Of all Team CLG with Crown, with all the acclaim that he came into to that team with, and then all of a sudden Pobelter comes in, I just feel like he has a fire and a passion to succeed.
I mean, CLG was definitely in dire straits, and we've seen high-quality imports not work out before. Piglet comes to mind. I mean, he had varying degrees of success. You could make arguments up or down for him. GBM came in. He had varying degrees of success as well. But Pobelter is wildly different in that he is just so smart. He is an incredibly intelligent individual, and I think that it is a shame it took a team this long to pick him up. And who knows, maybe he'll have a starting job on CLG for the rest of the year because of this and his performances. But
look at him outperforming Bjergsen in their matchup.
406, Victor, I mean, he helped blow out almost fully built Mordekaiser with Victor. It was disgusting.
That felt good because I hate playing against the Mordekaiser. That was nice to see.
Even Riv was sitting there and he was like, oh, why? Just deleted, But yeah, I mean, Pobelter is an exceptionally skilled mid laner. He's always above average, if not solid. And I just think it was a shame that it took a team this long to pick him up.
Pobelter now has 17 wins on Victor, second most in his career in 446 games in competitive League of Legends in 47 different champions. Emily, when you look at CLG, is there any hope here for the summer? I know that we're forecasting way ahead here, but Pobelter brings a lot to the table here for this squad.
I mean, so when we talked about Pobelter previously, despite their losses last week on the show, we were all pretty adamant that, this wasn't Pobelter's fault. I will say in the win against TSM, there was a lot of really weird, funky jungle pathing going on that was not great.
Please do tell.
From either team. But I think that in order for, I'm bringing it up because I do think that in order for CLG to succeed and potentially, be a playoff team, they're really going to have to take a look at their early game. Specifically, I think that Wiggly and Pobelter need to develop their synergy a bit better. And also just I love Wiggly because he was on my first ever Scouting Grounds team that I followed, but some of his early pathing decisions were really not that great, and it was kind of fortunate that TSM was also making some similarly weird moves in the early game that it kind of balanced out. In order for CLG to even think of becoming a playoff team down the road, they need to shore up a lot of those fundamentals before we can even start talking about that.
Emily puts out spreadsheets, by the way. She tweets spreadsheets of jungle pathing. So if you are a jungle enthusiast like Emily, definitely worth a follow at League of Emily on Twitter, but also for that content, which is absolutely superb. What else is superb is what's happening in the LEC. By the way, you are watching the Rift Rewind, which is an ESPN League of Legends program. We are live on Twitch, the ESPN app, YouTube, and on Twitter. And Twitch chat is buzzing. I am following along, getting all of your questions in, as many of them as possible. The LEC, G2, still finding themselves.
G who?
You're not that much of a contrarian. Come on. No, that you did that for the gimmick. Come
Not
on.
impressed.
You're good with the predictions, but give me a break. Let's take a look at the standings in the LEC after this weekend. As you can see, these are the results, pardon me. G2 had a fairly easy weekend. They defeated SK and Vitality, but the other top teams seem to have had one difficult game and one easier game, so to speak. But here are the Here are the results.
Yeah, so to speak. Origin and Schalke was actually kind of a fist fight throughout a good majority of it, and until Origin finally did not one attempt, but two attempts for a backdoor, and then finally upset got it on the second one. Schalke wins that match. They had Elder, and they got Baron, and Schalke wins if they get a 5v5 team fight right after that. And Origin knew, oh, no, we're not going to do that. We're going to live up to Xpeke's name and do two backdoors. So that was an interesting match.
Now here's the results from day 2. Misfits victorious, Fnatic victorious. Origin defeating Rogue. It wasn't an easy matchup going in, but they were able to seal the deal there, get some valuable points.
Yeah, look, Origin is 9-3 for a reason. They're one of the top 3 teams in the LEC. It goes between, right now, G2, Origin, and Fnatic. And if you had to put money down on it, I'd put it on Fnatic over anyone else.
As we take a look at the standings here, that is a 3-way tie for first. And in fact, G2 will face Origin and Fnatic in Week 7. Really, we're gearing up for the battle of first place, right? Whatever shakes down from this upcoming weekend, it's going to be very exciting at the top of the table in the LEC.
Yeah, OG and Fnatic both have G2. G2 has a really tough week coming up. I think you're going to get a really good preview of some playoff matches. We're getting nearer to the end of the spring split, so we're getting to some of those final forms. And your synergies should be figured out. Your drafts should be figured out. You should have paths to victory.
Now, you can see here, obviously, after Excel, there's a big drop-off there. Those 3 teams really looking forward to summer, SK, Schalke, and Vitality. But Schalke giving some teams trouble, though, since the changes.
Yeah, ever since Forgiven, was replaced, I thought Schalke has looked better. They look like they're having more fun. They're being more proactive. They are honestly a more fun team to watch now that they've got a couple of wins under their belt. And what they choose to do with the rest of their time in spring, I think, will directly impact how they start off in summer.
So we have something going on in chat here that we have never seen before. We have both real Jacob Wolf and evil Jacob Wolf in the chat at the same time.
I don't believe it.
Do you think Jacob's on 2 different computers? Like he's just typing?
I don't know. Is it Jacob and Wolf? Is there a purple check
No,
mark?
it's actually Jacob, and it's actually evil Jacob.
Twitch verified and
That's right. But this has never happened. I don't know how the internet is coping right now. That the fact that both of them are in the same chat is
I'm nervous now.
unbelievable.
I'm nervous.
Let's talk Origin. The LEC, Tyler, released a video talking with multiple players around the league, asking them who their most overrated and underrated players were so far this split. And Upset was in both lists, second for most overrated, also second for most underrated. So where does he fit among Origin and their success, in your opinion?
It makes sense, right? I mean, Upset is that late game carry who is put into a team that's very boring, and I've said this many times, they're very boring, they're very consistent. They don't take fights where they don't think they can win 100% of the time, and it puts him in that late game position where he's farmed up, the team plays around him, and in those moments he shines. And for a lot of people, they see that and say, hey, on a weaker team, on a team that isn't prepped perfectly around him with stars around him, he's not that good. And then you look at other people who are saying, to do that consistently and be that late game carry like the Teddy, like the ruler player he is, that's impressive. So I can see both sides of the coin. I think he's very impressive. And OG, as I said last week, they're going to get wins. And they're boring, yes. They don't play the most exciting style. But I'm actually going to come out and say that people who don't think they're a good team because they play a slow style are ludicrous. It's asinine and it's short-sighted. But playing slow and having a slow identity isn't a bad thing. We've seen champions before win with a slower paced style. Sure, different metas, but here's the thing. Team Liquid beat IG last year at MSI by playing a slower style. The issue of Team Liquid is that they didn't have anything else in their sleeve, right? They could only play that one style. OG can play a slow style, but they also need to be able to hurry up and play a faster game if needed. And we saw this weekend against Rogue, where they dominated Rogue in the early game. Rogue, one of the best early game teams in the league, and a team I think is very, very good. They dominated them in the early game. Alfari is one of the best laners in the entire league. Upset can hold his own against anyone in lane. Nukaduck is a veteran and has shown time and time again he can stand up in the mid lane. So this team can play fast. Xerxes is one of the best early game junglers in the league. It's just that a lot of times they're going to play it safe. They're going to stretch it out and make sure they're going to win. So for OG, I don't see their slow play as a detriment, because when it's needed, they can play fast, as shown versus Rogue. If you can only play one style and it's slow, you're probably not going to win many titles. But if you can play slow and safe, but also throw that curveball in at times where you can play a sped up style, you can win some championships.
Fnatic definitely don't play slow and safe, Emily. Nemesis in that same video was also tied for second in terms of most overrated player. Do you agree with that in terms of the LEC, and what are Fnatic's keys to victory?
So yeah, I think a lot of people either took issue or kind of misunderstood what I was saying about Nemesis last week. And it's that I just think Fnatic are using him really well, right? Like this past week, we saw him pull out that Vigar again, and it worked really well. I think the big thing to pay attention to with Fnatic is currently right now on this patch, this is actually a really great Fnatic patch because it focuses a lot more on tanks. And so they can play those tanks in the mid lane. They can play them in the top lane if they want. They can really make the most of Nemesis's champion pool, I think, on this patch, and also play the style that they want to play. I really love, honestly, a lot of things that I've been seeing from Fnatic in terms of how, again, they've been playing around Nemesis. They end up crashing early waves into mid turret so that Nemesis's opponent actually loses a ton of extra resources early. I also want to bring up the fact that Selfmade, again, has been, we've talked about it week after week, but he has been such a fantastic addition to this team because he can really adapt on the fly, adjust, and I feel like we always see him really continue to propel this team forward. I picked Fnatic as my top team in LEC at the end of the regular season, and right now I'm feeling pretty strongly about that position, especially on patch 10.4 right now.
Yeah, I really want to give a shout out to Nemesis. I thought that his Vigar pick specifically shut down Misfits on 4 different champions. Rakan, Pantheon, Azir, and Set really can't do a lot to get past the Vigar cage. And that solo pick, that singular pick, which was last pick in that draft, was one of the big reasons why Misfits was not able to beat Fnatic. The last thing I'll shout out, one of the things that we had questioned was who are Fnatic without Youngbuck, their coach Youngbuck. And Mithy being in that coaching position, I think has helped out a lot. He's got a lot of experience, and I don't think that the coaches get enough love, so shout out to Mithy.
Vinny MK says Reckless had 4 kills versus Misfits, by the way. And also, Rushy94, Fnatic low-key the best team in the world right now?
I mean, we'll talk about LPL scrims in a little bit, I suppose, but I don't know, low-key best? I don't know, T1, Gen.g, Fnatic.
Do you think they battle, Gen.g, T1? Do you think they battle the teams in the LCK right now?
I don't know. Tyler, what do you think?
Tyler, does Fnatic take them down?
Do any of those teams have their mid-turret unbroken in 11 straight games? I think not. That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying. No,
That's all you need to say.
Fnatic's lost many mid-turrets this split.
You know
Some teams
who's
have lost
gonna
zero.
You know who's gonna? I know we're on the LEC, but do you know who's gonna take that outer mid lane turret from C9? It's gonna be Pobelter. You wait and see. Pobelter is gonna take that and he's gonna create a necklace and it's gonna go right there like a little amulet, and he's gonna wear it for the rest of the split. He might not get a championship this split, but he's certainly gonna get a nice trinket. That's my prediction. Anyway, let's go back to the LEC here. G2 seem to be having a lot of fun. Have you listened to their comms? They are excellent. They are loose. They are fun. They are beatboxing if you listen to Perks and Caps.
Until G2, if G2 goes 2-0 next week against OG and Fnatic,
Yes.
then they're back. I would not count your
You can
blessings
say that
yet.
for any of those 3 teams, though. If either of those 3
G2
teams
has a
goes 2-0.
way harder week, though. They have OG and Fnatic. They are going to be wrestling for sole first place, most likely,
Okay.
in next week's matches. And until they win there, G2 is still not, quote-unquote, back in my eyes. Look at they beat up the small kids in the recess room. They just beat up Vitality pretty handily, and then they beat up Schalke, right? Who's their other match?
This past weekend
Yeah.
was, let me look here, Vitality and SK.
SK, my bad. Excuse me. Vitality and SK. So they beat up the small kids.
Both convincing wins.
Yeah. Oh man, it was trolling. It was a massacre.
Yeah.
So we'll see how they look next week against.
But that's the
top tier
confidence.
competition.
That's the confidence they need when they're going into games.
I'm not
against
saying that.
Origin
I'm
and
not
Fnatic.
disputing that.
And that has been lost a little bit in the middle of this split.
Sure, absolutely. But until they beat those top tier teams again, I don't.
And here are their stats, by the way. Very
Yeah,
impressive, obviously.
yeah. No, they're slaughtering stats. They're absolutely they crushed 2 of the worst teams in the LEC. Congratulations.
No, yeah, I will agree, Emily, that this performance by G2 this past weekend doesn't necessarily cement them as the top team in the LEC, nor does it really tell us anything other than just a weekend to completely press the reset button as a palate cleanser for next weekend. But confidence goes a long way, and team dynamic goes a long way. And you have to say that G2 are at their most confident right now in this split.
Yeah, I mean, I liked a lot of things I saw from G2 this past week. They had like the Talia Pantheon combo with Yankos going buffless and then ganking bot and then ganking mid, which I thought was actually really, really smart, especially against a team like SK where they're not typically known. Like Trick is not a jungler who's typically known for his early game proactivity. And then, I think the player I really want to talk about on this G2 roster that people have been hypercritical of because of the role swap, I think, has been Caps, who I don't think he's been performing as badly as people might think, but I do think he still needs work in terms of some of his team fight positioning as an AD carry specifically. However, this past week, we saw him play Talia, and then we also saw him play the fasting Senna. So I think that is the key to G2's success going forward, is also really finding these picks that can make the most of Caps' understanding of stuff like wave management and and lane control and just like basic laning matchups, because I think all of that is still like really, really good. So if you can place Caps on those champions where he is going to succeed, I mean, I'm looking at next week. I think they lose to Fnatic, and I think they beat Origin, actually. So what do you guys think?
Oh, that's it. I think G2 go 2-0. I think they make a statement week. What do you think?
1-1. I think they'll beat. They'll lose against Fnatic and lose against OG. Oh, sorry. No.
That's 0-2.
No, yeah, sorry. They will lose to Fnatic and beat OG. I think G2 will play too fast.
Fnatic gets it back because G2 did beat Fnatic early.
Well, here's the thing: is Fnatic is generally a stronger team early. Their gold at 15 is plus 1278. G2 is plus 1112. G2 can be stronger late, but if Fnatic can put the pedal to the metal, use some of those early teleports that we saw against that they used with Bwipo getting an early kill in mid lane, taking red buff, and then go and killing Dan for Misfits right after, then it's going to be a little bit tougher for G2, I think.
Team that needs to put pedal to the metal is Misfits. Right below the top 3 teams, Tyler, how do Misfits fare for the rest of the split? Do they remain in the mix?
Oh, that's such a difficult question because last week I literally apologized to Misfits saying they were a good team, they're great. Oh, you guys, I was so wrong. And then now I'm gonna have to sit here and be like, yeah, about that. Misfits is a fun story. They remind me of Rogue last year, where Rogue had a lot of rookies on the team, and they upset some people, and they went to the playoffs and they upset Splice. And I think Misfits is in that similar spot this split, where they'll finish top 6. They're going to go to the playoffs. They can maybe upset, a team like maybe Origin or a Rogue in the playoffs. But I don't know how high their ceiling is this split, because experience does matter. And I know Fevin, obviously MVP candidate, great mid laner, but I think the rest of their players, like a Razork and a Denick and a Dan, they need that extra time. They need to go to the playoffs. They need to get beat. Only the greats of the greats can come into a playoff and dominate in their first. Well, even Griffin, with their, all the hype they had last year, they went to the finals and choked versus KT Rolster. So for Misfits, I think they go to playoffs, have a very commendable effort, maybe do an upset, maybe lose 3-2. But yeah, I think that's their ceiling for this split. I don't think they're going to go MSI, but I think they should be really proud of themselves. I still think they have a shot to maybe go deep in the playoffs if everything aligns.
Couple teams that went 1-1 this weekend. Emily, we'll start with Mad Lions. They beat Vitality, but they lost to XL. Where are you with Mad Lions right now?
I mean, I still love them. I feel like I've cursed them for saying that I like them. They're still a team that needs a lot of work, right? Like if they want to contend with a lot of the top tier teams, they're still figuring things out. I think they made a lot of drafting mistakes this past week that gave their opponents a lot of advantages. I think there were also some smart moves, like for example, XL is a team that I also have trouble believing in, but they got that first blood on Tristana like super early against Mad. And I mean, I think Mad have a lot of really good pieces. I think for them it is about shoring up drafting and also additionally just like basic execution things, like when to dive a turret, like paying attention to, I mean, it's kind of similar to what I was talking about with FlyQuest, right? Where like, what is the difference between a team that's just like really fun to watch, has a lot of really cool pieces. And in the case of Mad Lions, the coolest thing about it is that so many of these players are just like either straight up rookies or just really young and still up and coming talent like Humanoid. So I love this team. They make a lot of mistakes. I think with stronger drafts going forward, and then also some better looks at, again, like I know I continuously repeat myself with this, but like early jungle pathing, where are you trading sides? What are you losing pressure for? What is your wave state? Like all of that stuff is really things that Mad Lions need to pay attention to going forward, because that's what's separating them from actually contending with the stronger teams in Europe.
And I think that jungle for Mad Lions, Shadow specifically, keep him on Lee Sin. He's 4-2 on Lee Sin with a 6.4 KDA, 336 gold per minute. That's the highest among junglers in the LEC. He does really well on Lee Sin. There's no reason not to pick him or take him away from other teams. He just finds angles and finds ways to create plays on that Lee Sin. And I think that their inexperience kind of shows a little bit. If you look at that XL game, they got beat in the early game a little bit, and they wanted to do some flanking plays, and Rome had some really nice flanking plays in that mid to late game, but XL had already pushed them so far that they had control over that fourth Drake that they needed for Soul Point, that XL needed for Soul Point, and they were able to force Mad Lions into an unfavorable position. And I think if they show up some of that early game, make sure that Shadow is in a really good spot to help them succeed and make plays, then you're going to see a really successful Mad Lions in summer.
The Nightmare in chat says EU so insecure. Well, the last two teams went 1-1 this past weekend that we spoke about. Also, the next two teams went 1-1 as well. Rogue lost to Origin but beat XL. Tyler, Rogue up and down this season. Do you have any faith that they will have any sort of playoff run?
Again, I like Misfits, it's difficult. And with Rogue, it's kind of like this, right? Last year, they were like children. And every time they did anything good, because they were so young and they were rookies, we just clapped for them, right? Like, oh, they're so cute. They won a game. They upset G2. Oh, they beat Splice in the playoffs. How cute. They're great. They're going to grow up to be awesome. This year, it's more like they're in the teenage stage, right? Where they're showing more of that potential. They're getting those really early leads, but then you're like, why are you so stupid? Why are you so stupid? Inspired, why are you getting caught out in the jungle? Larson, you just got a great lead in the mid. Why are you throwing this away? And now they're in this teenage stage where you love them and you want them to succeed, and you know as an adult they're probably going to be something worthwhile, but they're just making stupid decisions when they don't need to. And you just want them to succeed, but they keep stealing the car and going out for joyrides, and it's not fun. It's difficult. Rogue is difficult to love because they're really talented, they are really promising, but they throw away leads, and they have games like where they have against Origin where they just get steamrolled. So right now, Rogue is in their teenage stage. Hopefully they grow up to be adults by the end of 2020.
Moving on, as you see the KDA for Rogue this past weekend, finally we will discuss XL. And yeah, another 1-1 team this past weekend, and it is very congested in the middle. Well, it's congested at the top with 3 teams, then it's congested once again in the middle with several teams, and then 3 teams at the bottom, just hoping that summer gets here and the sun and the fun sooner than later. But when you look at XL, Emily, do you see them as a possible team that contends against the top 3, or are they going to stay middle of the pack and battling for a playoff spot?
I mean, I think they're going to stay middle of the pack. XL are a team that is really difficult for me to believe in, even more so than Mad Lions, because they seem to be very, like, the word coin flippy is used too frequently, but any Mickey team is going to be like that. And I think we saw some of the lowlights of Expect's laning this past week as well, which was unfortunate. The big thing is that they do have the 2-0 lead over Mad Lions, which makes that specifically is interesting because they own the head-to-head matchup. So considering that Mad Lions are going to be one of those teams that XL are probably going to be battling for one of those playoff spots, that puts them in a really good position after this week. Another player that I really want to call out that I think is just really smart and someone that I feel has performed well on this team is K-Drill, actually, despite that 0-3-0 KDA that's up there right now against Rogue. I really think that K-Drill is a smart player, and even with some of the mistakes he makes in the jungle, like, I really enjoy watching him as a jungler. And I think if XL are going to make any sort of like late playoff push, K-Drill is definitely going to be at the center of that.
Tyler, I think you would have fun with this one. We are going to talk about the differences or how they match up between the LEC and LCK later with you, but this right here in chat, M. Rushy, these are back-to-back comments. M. Rushy94 says, this Schalke team could be second in the LCS, no joke, followed by Colin, who says, well, XL would be second in the LCS. What do you think about those two teams and how they would fare in the LCS? Play a little fantasy league for us, Tyler.
Oh, I hate playing Fantasy League because anything I say, people on Reddit are going to attack me for. But who cares? We're having fun out here. We're having fun. Actually, really thinking about it, XL being the second best team in NA, yeah, I can actually see it. I think you could argue XL versus FlyQuest. I think the thing with when we talk about Mickey is such a difficult player to rate just because he has such high highs and such low lows. And if you've watched Mickey at all throughout his career, his teams usually end up in the spot XL are at. They are a 5th to 6th place team where they have really high highs and then they look terrible the next week. And I think whenever you have Mickey on a team where he needs to be the sole focus because he's that type of player, he's going to pop off sometimes and he's going to look weak. And then I think in NA, if he was in NA and then kind of left after 2 days because he was angry or something. But really, XL second, it's possible. I mean, FlyQuest are a good team, they're a solid team, but I don't think they're world beaters. But I think by the end of the split, if TL will be the second best team in LCS. So yeah, 3rd place in LCS, that's fine. I don't think TSM has really done anything to prove themselves over the likes of XL or Rogue or Mad Lions this split, so.
Schalke's second in the LCS, though. I'll
Schalke look a lot better.
I'll take that bet.
For all the talk that I said about CLG having a great second half of the split, I think Schalke will give a lot of teams some trouble in the LEC for the second half. They'll look better than they did.
Well, yeah, but I mean, that's not hard.
Okay, fair enough. By the way, Tyler, you're getting some love in the chat for your Reddit comment there. Let me find it here. Gobestar says, who cares about the Reddit basement dwellers? Oh, boy.
They can't even get their rules consistent, so I don't know. I just read what Tyler and Emily write because I trust them.
What we do care about is the LPL. Of course, we know what's happening with coronavirus. Happening worldwide, obviously, has certainly affected China. Last week, Emily talked about how all sport-related gatherings, including esports events in China, have been put to a halt until at least April 30th.
Katowice didn't even have a crowd last weekend.
IEM Katowice CSGO tournament did not have a crowd this past weekend. LCK events do not have crowds this weekend. So certainly there is concern there. We do know that the government is working with Riot to try and see what they can do regarding the LPL. Emily, you will have more information on that, obviously. But the online Scrim League has also started and ended, so to speak. What did you take away from that? Anything leading into, hopefully, fingers crossed, competitive games for the LPL?
So I feel like the LPL scrims delivered in terms of what I expected from them, which was that teams were going to be taking them seriously enough to look at, say, some up-and-coming players, like, for example, JD Gaming played 705 over Zoom and still absolutely annihilated everyone. So that was really fun to watch because chances are, I mean, Zoom is one of the best tops in the LPL, so he's not really going to get a chance to start over Zoom, I'm presuming. And 705 played actually better than I expected, having seen, from what I've seen of his LDL performances. I mean, I think we saw some Silas priority. We saw a lot of kills. We saw a lot of some weird team compositions. I mean, Karsa played Kazakh's jungle for some reason. It was a lot of fun. I'd really missed the LPL, right? Because you see these teams and they're just so willing to fight, especially in a setup like this where the standings really don't matter and the teams know that. It's just broadcasted scrims. Going forward, LPL returns March 9th, and all games are going to be played online. So we'll see. That's when we really see what can be applied from these scrims to how they end up playing online. I know Edward Gaming, like you guys mentioned, the mandatory quarantine that goes on when you have to travel. EDG, I know, moved all of their players back, so they've already passed quarantine, actually. So they were ahead of the game where they're all at their base. But going forward, looking at the online LPL, this is actually going to be really interesting because I'm cautiously optimistic as to how the internet infrastructure will work out here, how the fact that not all players are going to be coming in from the same location. So we'll see how the league itself slowly recovers. I expect it to look more like the scrim league at first than something where people are going to be like, oh my gosh, LPL comes back and these teams are all terrible. Like, what are you even talking about? How is this league considered to be the best in the world? I feel like that happened week 1 with the regular LPL season play. I feel like it kind of happened again with Scrim League, and I definitely think it will happen again during the first week of LPL when we return to online play. But for me, I'm just really happy that we're going to have more LPL action going forward so we can really start digging into these games and seeing where teams are at.
Emily, do you have any idea on the point system? Will it be tournament? Will it be league for this split? Like, how will that work since they've started so late in the season?
I mean, it's a league, and they basically have stacked games, so they have like a ton of games every day. They tweeted they posted the schedule on Weibo, and I believe the LPL English account posted it as well, but it's all laid out where they have like typically there are going to be 3 matches a day, so they're just kind of all like cramming their matches in to try to make up for lost time. And yeah, the first match to kick it off is going to be OMG versus LNG, followed by FPX are back against JD Gaming, and then RNG versus Top Esports. So we actually have 2 like really interesting matchups from the get-go on day 1. We haven't seen RNG in ages. We haven't seen FPX since they were Struggle Life trying to figure out how to fit Khan on their team as opposed to Gimgoon, who's a very low resource top laner. So I don't know. Are you guys as excited as me? Because I feel like I'm the only one who's excited about it.
LPL, baby!
No, that's fabricated.
That is not. I love the LPL.
There's not a single human being that could be more excited about the LPL than
true.
Emily Rand.
But
we're all battling for second.
That is true. But I do have a question for Emily. And Emily, with the LPL starting so late, if it happens that China comes to Worlds, well, you know, assuming that it'll still happen in China, and the LPL has a poor showing at Worlds, do you think people will look back and say, oh, it was because they started so late because of the coronavirus, there's an asterisk on this, that's why the LPL didn't show up at Worlds? Do you think there's going to be talk around that?
I think there is definitely going to be talk around that, and I also think it's mainly going to be because, like, shout out to, I don't know if anyone in Twitch chat is like an OG like season 3, season 4 LPL person, but like some of the online tournaments we have seen in China have suffered from massive internet issues, and even with teams at their home venues, like Team WE's home venue always has like delays and pauses, usually because of internet issues. So it's less for me the fact that they get a late start, and more for me the fact that they're going to have to play the entirety of this online because of the virus. So unfortunately, I do think that there is going to be an asterisk. It's really unfortunate that that's the case, but I mean, like what do you guys think? Like, I mean, I don't see there's a way to avoid looking at that. And again, it's less because of the late start and more because of the fact that they have to play everything online.
I think that the thing is, this 2 things will always be true as it pertains to any events that get postponed or altered or canceled due to coronavirus. These are factual things. Number 1, it's unfortunate that it's happening. Number 2, it is 100% the right call. Every single time, okay? The safety of human beings is much more important than any competitive game anywhere in any realm. Doesn't matter if it's traditional sports, doesn't matter if it's esports, whatever it is. Health and safety come first. I wouldn't be surprised if we see more postponements or cancellations as we hear more about outbreaks of the coronavirus. We are hearing more and more of outbreaks in the United States. We heard 2 cases in Tampa recently, for example. Could this mean that there will be a more widespread virus count across America, including in Los Angeles, which could impact the LCS? Absolutely. Prepare for this. This could very well happen. This is a very contagious disease. And so this could very well not only impact the LPL and LCK, but the LEC and LCS as well, and we should all be prepared for that.
It's going to get worse before it gets better, for sure.
Absolutely.
There's going to be more cancellations. It's going to be pretty difficult year for esports audiences.
Yes. But it is the right call.
It is. It is absolutely the right call. I think all things considered, it would be interesting if North America had its best showing at Worlds because the LPL had a bad start. That would be the worst asterisk.
I will end on this before we move on. That is not the way that NA would want to win Worlds.
No, and I don't think anyone
You
wants
want
to
to
see
win
any,
at 100%.
Of course. And
but then there will be some people that say, I don't care how we win. We got a championship. The Toronto Raptors won with against the depleted Golden State Warriors squad. I don't care. Toronto won a chip.
Yeah.
Right? So, like, it depends. Anyhow, one league, of course, that has been affected by coronavirus is the LCK, playing in empty arenas right now, of course, with the media as well. We know everything that's going on there. And there's a debate, of course, LCK versus LEC. We love playing Fantasy League here. Tyler doesn't necessarily love playing Fantasy League, but guess what? He
Put
has
him
to.
through it anyways.
We got to do it anyway. So we put you through the ringer. Compare the LEC to the LCK, Tyler. Put them in the Thunderdome. Which league comes out on top?
They're really comparable. I mean, I know that's the boring answer, and you want me to be like, LEC's better or LCK's better, but really they're really comparable. I think all the top teams right now have question marks around them, and the bottom of the leagues, both of the bottom of the leagues are terrible. They're NA bad. Like the bottom of the barrel, the APK Princes, the Vitalities, the SKs, not the SKTs, are just, they're terrible. They would be bad in NA. They'd be bottom of the barrel in NA. But really, I think it's really a discussion of who do you trust more? Do you trust the G2 Fnatic combo, or do you trust the T1 and gen.g combo? If these are the two titans in both leagues right now, which ones do you side with? And for me personally, I'm going to side slightly towards South Korea on this one. Gen.g for me, for my money, is looking, besides, you know, C9, because they're the most dominant team right now in League of Legends just because their competition's trash. But Gen.g is doing a very impressive job destroying the competition in the LCK. They are winning lanes all around. BDD looks like the best player in the world. Ruler is one of the best AD carries in the world. There's a star-studded lineup around the board. And if I say one team right now is most talented in the world, it would be Gen.g.
Emily, how about this for the Worlds? Let's say China's unable to participate. How about we have a Worlds and the winner faces the best LPL team in a special challenge match where the winner gets declared the World's champion?
That would be interesting, and also I would say kind of unfair to the teams challenging the LPL team, because
okay, so
the
it's a bad
LPL
idea.
is getting a bye to the finals.
Bad idea.
Which even me as the LPL enthusiast thinks is quite unfair. Talking about Korea though, I actually have to agree with Tyler that I think I really love what Gen.g are doing. I love Clid. I think he, again, like on T1 last year, he was the driving force behind some of their more early proactivity that we saw flashes of. And Gen.g allows for him to do that a bit more, where SKT has settled down into what I would consider to be kind of the classic style that they like to play with Cuz, which has actually been interesting to me as well, because Cuz was known as, excuse me, getting over a head cold. Cuz has been known when he first came in as like, oh my gosh, this insane kid with highlight reels off of solo queue and his like insane mechanics, he's going to be super aggressive. And that never panned out, but on T1, I think he fits in really well with what T1 want to do by, again, like not being as aggressive early, and where you saw friction in terms of what Clid wanted to do and maybe what the rest of T1 wanted to do last year. I think Cuz is a better fit. Now, as to whether T1 could go internationally and face off against G2 and Fnatic, I actually still think that they'd have some of the same issues that they had facing G2 last year, where G2, they'd kind of like lose out a bit too much and G2's early game would end up overwhelming them. But again, that is a matchup that's really interesting to me. And then I really like a lot of things that Gen.g are doing right now. I love Clid, and I think in terms of that team going forward, to me, if I'm looking at teams currently, right now, I think that's the best chance for LCK internationally is Gen.g. That could change if Afrika or Kingzone kind of make a push and get their stuff together, because I think the things that those two teams are doing are really interesting. But right now, it's Gen.g for me.
I'm a big fan of what T1's doing right now. I think there's been a lot of fun games with Faker.
Giving Faker big-time contract?
Yeah, give Faker a big-time contract. But I also want to give a shout-out to Kana. Tyler talked about, you know, T1 is a team that needs a strong, singular top laner. And they had Roach and Kana at the start. I think Roach actually only played one game. Then they went with Kana for the rest of it. Kana's been, like, overperforming. He's been doing really well. He's 32, 11, 82, 10.4 KDA. He only has 12% of his team's death share. I mean, this kid is playing out of his mind. He's exactly what T1 needs and probably wants, which is why they're obviously running with him. But, you know, when you have that level of a top laner for T1, man, look out. They're going to be a really, really heavy contender for Worlds this year, specifically for everything else that's going on the global stage with the coronavirus.
Whathead in the chat says the winner of Worlds should get all the credit where it's due, with the only asterisk next to China's performance. I mean, look,
sure,
you have to give credit to Riot's esports team because this is very difficult to navigate in unforeseen circumstances. And for all intents and purposes, they're doing their best to give the products that the League of Legends esports fan enjoys. So you have to give them credit for working overtime to try and put as many pieces as they can in place to give what we want. Now we're going to talk Monday Night League. Let's send it to the Riot desk. Tigress, take it away, please. Here we go.
Thank you so much, Arda. I'm going to put Prolly on blast and say he just dropped a marker on the floor.
It was I'll step up. It was a bad throw by me.
Yeah.
Okay, there we go.
There was no way I could catch that in time.
All right, one thing that we will catch you up on, yeah?
Pretty good.
All right,
Pretty good.
the matches that we have coming up today. First off, it is CLG and Immortals. And I think before CLG's recent win, this might be a bit of a different tale if that didn't happen.
Yeah, I think like last week, looking at this matchup, you'd be kind of uninspired, like, probably Immortals is going to win this and it'll be a long game and stuff like that. But now after CLG's game and the way they played against TSM, like a pretty top team, was like, we actually might not be able to predict this matchup anymore.
That plus the fact that Immortals is on a 4-game slide, I believe. This was a team that was winning a lot of games, like you're saying, through these late, slow things. And as other teams are improving, they're making fewer mistakes and there's less for Immortals to punish. So in the past, yeah, you're like, oh, CLG's going to make a ton of mistakes and they're going to lose to Immortals over a long game. Now it's like, well, actually,
maybe they might not mess up as much.
Yeah, CLG could win.
Well, and speaking of some of the improvements that have been made, CLG obviously picking up a different mid laner, but what are some of the other maybe effects you think that's had on the roster and their ability to play around that during the last game?
I mean, I don't know, changing a mid laner, since it's such an important role in the game, it's just so central and there's so many, I guess, like communication requirements on the mid laner. Putting a new one in changes, affects everything. So the way the support and the jungle now talks, who are like probably the next in line for really impactful roles in the game, now they're going to be different. So putting someone in who's also been like a coach for TL recently, and he's been on like top teams before, so he has experience being a mid laner, knowing what other stars do. Putting him on the team actually like changed a lot because they were so sloppy before. CLG was just a mess, but just with one change, they've actually have an identity.
Yeah, and I think it's allowed Rune to be a little bit better because when Crown was in, it felt like things were always going wrong in the mid lane. And so once something starts going wrong, it kind of demands attention, like a black hole. You just got to keep sucking in resources. And so, they had to worry about mid. And now that Pobelcher's more stable, I think you can have Wiggly go top a little bit more. And we've seen Rune be someone who has been able to shine, at least on that Rumble game, with the extra stability in the mid lane.
Well, and I think it could have been easy to worry about what was going to happen with the non-committal engagement they had in the draft, but they made so much happen with it.
I like non-committal engagement. If you have a Varus,
I'm a big fan.
Yeah, I mean, there was a Rek'Sai in that game, and you're like, what does the Rek'Sai do? And it's like, nothing. It doesn't need to. You have a Varus to start the fight.
Yeah, this kind of way to fight without like putting your body there is really powerful, because if you're ahead, then you just put your body there and you can probably extend your engage range. But when you're like, I'm not sure if I win this yet, you can almost like test the waters. Like, I'm gonna go hit them and see where this fight goes. And that was like the big turning point in that game was, they're maybe like a full screen away from each other, both teams. Rumble. And they just lay down the Rumble. They're like, oh yeah, we win this fight now.
Yeah.
So it's like, this is a good little test without having to die.
Yep, Rumble ult being very effective, some stuff coming out of the Victor. Now we're gonna see Pobelcher facing off against Aika.
Yeah, I think it's interesting just because when Pobelcher and Demonte didn't get teams in the offseason, there's a big outburst by the community of like, who are these other people we're getting? Who's Ryoma? Who's Aka?
Yeah.
You know, and so in a lot of ways, those guys have had to justify their position for why Demonte and Pobelter didn't start. Now that Pobelter's in the league, he has to prove it actually against the guy, not hypothetically of would Demonte or Pobelter be doing better. Now you actually have to play against him, and I think it's a big put-up moment for Aka.
Very different vibes in this match compared to the match that we'll be following, which is Dignitas and Cloud9. Can dig their way out of, I think it's 2-7 since their 3-0 start to the...
Yeah.
I believe that's what it is.
Yes.
Going against the team that is pursuing the 18-0, that is a tough pill to swallow.
They got to be hot. They got to be really hot to beat C9, and that's kind of what we're going to have to see is FlyQuest kind of showed a way in draft to kind of pick this like aggressive, I'm just going to say aggressive style where they're going to try to pick fights early game against Cloud9, and I think this fits Dig's style very well. And I'm really curious if they're actually going to try to play that way or if they have some new trick against C9.
Yeah, they're one of the team. It feels like no one's going to beat C9 in an even game going, according to plan. So like a highly volatile team might have the best chance. And compared to other teams in playoffs hunt right now, Dig might be the most volatile team compared to, FlyQuest feels pretty standard. TSM is hit or miss, but usually mid to late game hit or miss. Yeah, usually miss. So Dig does feel like one of these teams where, hey, we're going to dive a turret, and if it goes well, maybe we can actually blow the game open.
Yeah. And if it goes well for them, then they'll be feeling pretty good about this Monday Night League. But only time will tell. For now, we're going to send it back over to our friends in the ESPN area.
Thank you very much, Tigress. And I'm just going to shake my head slowly here for the analysts on the desk there. Did you notice that they left Tigress hanging on that segue? Can you believe that? As part of the great anchor society with Tigress, I take umbrage, okay? You do not do that to your host. Shame.
I think you focus on the wrong
Shame.
things.
Shame. Mark Z is everywhere, by the way. How does he have time to sleep? He does like every single piece of league content
It's
ever.
usually between him and like his hair and my hair for best hair week to week.
Oh, I think he wins.
What?
Chat, let us know.
I take umbrage with you not backing me up.
Whose hair is better? Chat, let us know. Is it Darren the Contrarian or is it Mark Z? And why is it Mark Z? All right, let's go to... Let's go to Immortals taking on CLG. Pobelter's rise. I think this is a good one. We got Xmithy, who's, for all intents and purposes, one of the more underrated players ever in the LCS. And now you have Pobelter, who was very underrated going into this season, didn't even find the team. I just love the matchup here, and I think that Pobelter is riding a wave right now, and I think that we could see an upset here if you call CLG beating Immortals an upset. What do you think? You went the other way.
I went with Immortals. I like
Why?
it. Well, I like Xmithy. I think Xmithy is a little bit more stable. They've had a longer time for this team to gel, and yes, they're on a little bit of a slump. But if they're going to find a way back from their slump, CLG would be a good game for them to do it. Pobelter is great. Not taking anything away from Pobelter, but I think there are some things that they can attack. Like Xmithy can definitely outshine Wiggly in the jungle and create more pressure elsewhere. If they set him farther behind, then it won't matter how much Pobelter can, really bring to the table if they set back, the jungler. That's my thought.
It's going to be an interesting matchup. CLG, Immortals, one of those teams definitely teetering, not necessarily where you thought that they would be right now in this split. CLG, meanwhile, bottom of the table, but have at least the potential to move up in the standings. Pobelter changing the personality and the vibe there. Let's go over to Los Angeles, though. Let's find out their thoughts. Let's start with Emily. Do you think that CLG have what it takes here to take down Immortals in Monday Night League?
Yeah, I actually picked CLG, and the reason is because if you remember, their first matchup was also on Monday Night League, and it was that kind of insane play where Soaz was just holding off a ton of them on Ornn, and then they had Alt Echo and basically just like, DPS the Nexus down in kind of a weird backdoor. But that's the play it came down to, right? So it was like really back and forth. It wasn't a decisive victory. I do think those kind of calls are what you get when you have a team like Immortals, where you have both Xmithy and Soaz who can make those kind of calls for the team. So I won't be shocked if IMT takes it, and I think if they do, it'll be actually in the jungle, kind of what Darren said, simply because some of that early Rek'Sai pathing from Wiggly was really not the best earlier this weekend. So I think this could be a chance for Xmithy to shine. However, I'm still picking CLG because, again, I think these teams are really evenly matched. I think Pole Belter should be able to shove in the mid-wave and hopefully carry them to victory despite draft and despite some early pathing mistakes.
Two teams that are not evenly matched. The other matchup on Monday Night League. First place Cloud9 taking on Dignitas, who started hot this split. We don't know where they are right now. Tyler, the question I want to ask is, do you think that Dignitas take C9's outer turret at mid lane?
No. No, nothing. They get nothing.
I mean, it was a yes or no question, and you got your answer.
Or no question. So what can Dignitas do? What can their game plan be against C9 to make this competitive?
They need a mini miracle. I'm just trying to think of ways. I mean, they have to contain Niski. I think that is the big, that has been the little something extra that C9 has been using, even when their early games have been a bit haywire, is that Niski pushes in the wave. He has learned from Doinby. I talked to Niski last weekend at the LCS, and he told me, watching Doinby at Worlds while he was not having a great tournament, Doinby inspired him to change up his play style into 2020. And he's really taking that to heart. Instead of playing tanks, instead of playing the Malphites and the Maokais and the Nautilus of the world, he's doing it with his mages. He's doing it with LeBlanc. He's doing it with Cassiopeia. He's doing it with Zoe. So Niski's kind of adopted this personality of he wants to be the Doinby of North America. And for Dignitas to have any shot of beating Cloud9 tonight, had any shot of actually taking the mid turret, they're going to have to lock down Niski. If Niski can push in the waves and he can start roaming on one of his mages, it's going to be a long, long night. Actually, a quick night for Dignitas because they're not going to last long versus Cloud9.
Let's take a look at our predictions. We always put up Twitter polls on who you think out there will win in Monday Night League. And here are our predictions on top of the predictions from Twitter. And it looks like a Cloud9 sweep in terms of predictions from all of us. And only Darren and Twitter, at 54% of the vote for Twitter, by the way, voted for Immortals. Once again, the contrarians on an island.
I mean, I didn't even mean to, this is a strange thing to have the backing of the internet. And not my colleagues. I don't know who to trust anymore.
You're our contrarian this time, not the contrarian of the people.
I tried picking EG over C9.
You're the people's champ this week. Look at that.
I guess, yeah. I mean, if you smell what I'm typing.
You reached on that.
Rock eyebrow.
Oh, boy. All right. Well, we all say Cloud9 is going to win. Chat seems to think so as well. Los Angeles, Tyler and Emily, thank you very much for joining us on the Rift Rewind. Of course, they are here pretty much every single week. Emily, feel better, please. We need you at 100%. Because
we need the LPL. We need the jungle pathing.
Yeah. Final thoughts. We are at the halfway point of this season. Pick any topic, anything that comes to your mind. Final thoughts as we move into Monday Night League.
Man, I really hope that I am wrong about things getting worse before they get better in the terms of the coronavirus. Sure. They are impacting esports everywhere. We know that it's the best thing for people to follow all the instructions of staying inside, wash your hands, all that stuff. But man, what is it really kind of heartbreaking to see Spodek empty during the Counter-Strike finals, and they still had to do all the production and go through with everything, and it's like, that's one of the most special events of the year, and if it continues, who knows what Worlds is going to be like, Who knows what the International is going to be like.
A lot of unanswered questions, for sure.
Yeah, so we just hope that it's not as bad as I think it will be.
I will say that an evil Ardo Cal has emerged.
Shut up.
I know that
Really?
I've made it. Yeah, it's in chat. I know that I've made it now, so thank you for basically
as he-
coronating me as part of the League of Legends family now because I have an evil account, so I appreciate that.
As long as he picks my hair over Mark Z's, then I think.
No,
we're fine.
actually, chat definitely picked Mark Z's hair.
They don't even know Mark Z.
They definitely know Mark Z because he's on every single piece of
Yes,
content
he's
that League of
everywhere.
Legends has. There's no doubt they know Mark
All
Z.
seriousness, love Mark Z.
Yeah,
no
he's
person.
very, very good.
He's great. Probably
That desk is
Tigris.
great too.
That
I'm
desk is
happy for
great.
Tigris actually because I know that's a position that she's wanted for a very long time, and as a fellow anchor and host, I know that it's very difficult, and that's also a low-hanging fruit kind of position, you know, to be scrutinized often, and Tigris is killing it. So.
No, hyper slaying it. All three of them.
Monday
Love it.
Night League predictions one more time. I'm saying CLG. I really feel like CLG is going to knock it out of the park here. They're going to have a great second half. C9, they're going to remain perfect. That outer turret's going to remain intact. Niski is going to have a heck of a game. Tyler, by the way, went live with Niski on Twitter this past weekend on his Twitter account. He went 2 for 2 with the Turks. He had Niski and then Closer after the Golden Guardians.
Niski's been having a low-key, like, really solid year.
MVP, you think?
No, not MVP, but he's been really, really solid, well above average. I mean, his Zoe game this weekend where he was poking out FlyQuest was just a nightmare for FlyQuest to deal with. Power of Evil was getting chunked half of his health with one of the paddle stars. I mean, that sort of stuff you can't buy that sort of skill. His roams on Kiana have been good earlier in the season. Can't say enough good things about Niski.
M. Pryor says PoE, Blabber, Sven, and Niski are the top 4, I'd say, for MVP. You're getting love from KO3, who says Darren seems like a guy who can party. Is that true? You a big party guy?
I party.
You doing this?
I
What is
party
love?
on the
Baby,
Rift.
don't hurt
I
me?
party in Tarkov.
Yeah.
I'm a terrible dancer, so I
You're
don't
not
know.
doing this, the What is Love, Baby, Don't Hurt Me?
From SNL?
Yeah, is that you?
Yeah, you.
That's
me,
you at the club?
You, me, and you, me. Yeah, I remember
Somebody
that
gift
skit.
that, please.
No
Please
one
gift
knows that
somebody.
skit in chat, by the way.
That's it for us on the Rift Rewind. Thank you very much for joining us in chat. Thank you to the Riot Desk for joining us as well. Enjoy Monday Night League every single Monday, 6:30 p.m. Eastern. You can join us here on the Rift Rewind.